So a flashpoint ignites in the Middle East, and almost instantly you can feel the shockwaves hitting energy markets in Asia, financial centers in Europe, and yeah, even the job market right here in North America. Okay, we're going to dig into this massive chain reaction and see just how one regional conflict is putting the entire global economy on notice.
I mean, that is a pretty stark assessment, right? It comes from a high ranking French general, and that's what he said when he was asked about joining a US led military operation. It just perfectly sums up this extreme reluctance from America's oldest allies to get involved. And it really sets the stage for a major geopolitical split.
So, to really get our heads around the global impact, we have to start right at the epicenter. We're talking about a military conflict that's escalating and fast, and it's all centered on one of the most critical maritime choke points on the entire planet. Right, the Strait of Hormuz. You can think of it as the jugular vein for a huge chunk of the world's oil supply. So, what happens when that passage is effectively under Iranian control? Well, the flow of energy that basically powers the global economy is suddenly in serious jeopardy. This isn't just some naval standoff, it's a direct threat to all of our energy security. And boy, are things escalating quickly. After a top Iranian security official was assassinated, Iran promised revenge. And since then, we've seen projectile attacks aimed at Gulf states, another shot at the US Embassy in Baghdad, and this is the part that really spooks global trade. Around 24 commercial tankers have been targeted. That basically turns the whole area into a no-go zone for shipping. And all of that brings us to the first big ripple effect, the geopolitical isolation of the United States. You see, as Washington has been calling on its partners for backup, the response has pretty much been a resounding no thanks. And I mean, just look at this list. The number of allies backing away is huge. Major European and NATO partners, Germany, France, Canada, they've all given a hard no. Key partners in Asia, they're voicing some very serious reservations. Really, the only potential bright spot for the US is the UAE, which says it's thinking about ways it could help, but big picture, the coalition is completely fractured. And this quote from the Greek Prime Minister just lays it all out. He makes it crystal clear. Europe's priority is not sending warships. It's battening down the hatches for the economic storm that's coming. They are way more worried about managing a potential energy crisis at home than they are about joining a conflict thousands of miles away.
Okay, so let's talk about that energy shock, because this is the ripple that hits everybody's wallet first, and it's the most immediate and painful consequence for all of us.
The numbers here are just mind-boggling. The effective shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz has yanked 15 million barrels of oil per day right off the global market. I mean, to put that in perspective, that is a huge slice of the world's daily oil consumption. Just gone, practically overnight. Now, what's really interesting here is how this puts any potential solutions into perspective. So we've heard that Iraq managed to sign a deal to reroute 500,000 barrels a day through a pipeline in Turkey. That sounds good, right? But as you can clearly see, that tiny little bar for rerouted oil is absolutely dwarfed by the massive shortfall. It is quite literally a drop in a very large, very empty bucket. So, no surprise the market reacted fast. Oil prices shot up and are now hanging around that $100 per barrel mark, which of course fuels inflation everywhere. And here's the kicker. Because they can't get their oil out, major producers like Iraq have already had to shut down 3/4 of their production. That just threatens to make this supply crunch even worse the longer it drags on. You know, this whole energy shock isn't just about what you pay at the pump. It's actually creating a worst-case scenario for the global economy. And it's a truly impossible puzzle for the world's central bankers to solve. The word they're all whispering is stagflation. It's this absolutely dreaded economic condition. It's a toxic mix of high inflation, which is being jacked up by these crazy energy costs, and at the same time slowing economic growth because of all the uncertainty. It's the worst of both worlds, and it is notoriously difficult to fight. And this is why it's a nightmare for central banks. They're totally trapped. The US Fed was actually expected to cut interest rates to help the economy grow. Now they might have to hold off or even raise rates to fight this new inflation, which could easily shove the economy right into a recession. And the European Central Bank, they're being pressured to hike rates, but if they do that, they'll slam the brakes on an already shaky European economy. There are just no good options here. Okay, so we've got geopolitical division, an economy teetering on the edge of stagflation. So what's the next domino to fall? Well, when businesses face this kind of high-cost, low-growth uncertainty, the first thing they often do is just stop. and that means the workforce gets put on hold. That's the CEO of Randstad, one of the biggest recruitment companies in the world. And his word for the global labor market is stuck. Think about it. If you're a CEO looking at all this chaos, are you going to expand? Are you going to hire a bunch of new people? Probably not. So companies everywhere are hitting the pause button, and that freezes up hiring and job mobility.
But here's where it gets really fascinating. Inside that stuck market, there's a weird paradox. While jobs in admin or customer service are getting squeezed because of cost cutting and AI, this crisis is creating a massive, desperate demand for other kinds of workers, people in skilled trades, healthcare, and engineering. It's like we're seeing a two-track labor market pop up.
And the demand for these skilled trades is so intense, it's completely rewriting the rules on salaries. A good electrician or an HVAC engineer can now easily command a six-figure salary. It's totally challenging our old ideas about what blue-collar versus white-collar work is worth. So, why is this happening right now? Well, this whole energy shock is a massive wake-up call. It's forcing companies and governments to fast-track long-term projects to build more resilient energy systems and supply chains. And what does that mean? It means building new AI data centers, new power grids, new chip factories, new green energy projects. So you have a bottleneck in our current energy supply over in the Gulf, and at the same time, we have a labor bottleneck for building the energy systems of the future. So, from a narrow strait in the Middle East to a construction site in your hometown, this one conflict shows us just how deeply interconnected and surprisingly fragile our global system really is. And it leaves us with a really critical question. In a world where these kinds of shocks are basically becoming the new normal, how resilient are we really? Are any of us truly prepared for what's coming next?